Good evening. Come on in. Good evening. We're not going to be long tonight. I just felt like talking. And I pray that some of you that have gone through the loss of a child will tune in tonight. Just want to talk to you real briefly. Good evening, YouTube, Facebook, and good evening, Instagram. I am Benita. You're watching What's on Your Mind. This is just an impromptu show, and I decided to just do this real quick tonight because, um, primarily because I was having a hard time today, and I thought about coming and just seeing and talking to my audience about riding those waves of grief after you've lost a child, particularly when that loss was sudden and unexpected and you don't have a lot of answers still. So I wanted to just come and talk for a minute, because it helps me to talk. And in helping me, I pray that I say something that will also help you get through your tough time as well. So I don't have any notes written down. It's really an impromptu. Um, it's really impromptu, and I really just, again, I wanted to talk to those of you that have experienced the loss of a child. Whether it was from the infancy or miscarriage, or if you actually got to see the child grow up and they were in their adult years and they died. Um, I want to speak to you too as well, because losing a child at any age is it's really difficult, particularly if you were really close to that child. And I know sometimes the parent-child dynamics can get a little skewed, particularly in this modern day culture in which we are living. Um, Hold on, let me get live. Okay, I'm live in the comments with you guys. Um, and so I wanted to just kind of talk to see who else was still having a hard time. I make no secret about having a really hard time processing everything with my daughter dying suddenly last year. Just, it's still really, really hard for us as a family. God bless you, sir. It's really hard for us as a family still because we don't have a lot of answers. If you know a parent that has lost a child, would you do me a favor? Tag them, share this video to their page or what have you. Tag them in the video so they can come on in here with us tonight. But like I said, I was just kind of going through my day today, not really feeling my best and not really feeling like myself today. And I will admit to you that the day started out kind of rough. It started out really rough, and it was really hard. November is really rough for me because that was the month my daughter was born, and March is normally hard. That's the month she died, and then April is hard. That's the month we buried her. Once I get into it a little bit, you'll understand the dynamics of those three dates and why if she died in March, why did we bury her in April? So I'll try to get into that if time permits um, during the time that I want to spend talking about this tonight. But I was thinking about it, and then I was like, you know, oftentimes we think about, well, who can I call to talk to? You know, some of us, I'm still in therapy. If you've lost a child and it's pretty recent, you probably, particularly if you were close to that child, you probably still should be in therapy or some form of therapeutic, intervention or what have you, just to help you deal with it, because nothing, absolutely nothing in this world can prepare you to lose a child suddenly. We had no warning signals. It wasn't like, oh, she got sick, then she just died. We had nothing to suggest that it was time. There was nothing that we saw that made us believe that this was getting ready to happen. And again, it happened so suddenly till we were just like, literally, like, you ever see on TV how they have the table setting and people are sitting around the table and somebody just snatches the table out from under them. Sonia Goff lost her daughter at the age of 9 due to domestic violence. I tagged her in it. Thank you so much, Hope. I appreciate that. And so sometimes it feels like somebody just snatches the rug from under you, and you just take this forever fall and you're forever falling into this abyss. It's like, where's the bottom of this thing? You're forever falling. And the dreams and the imagery that comes to your mind, particularly uh, in my case, um, I was there. Um, what happened, my daughter, I will tell you this, she had been diagnosed with cancer uh, at age 19 with Hodgkin's lymphoma. But we would fight it. We fought for 15 years, and she was indeed overcoming every obstacle. Every time it tried to come back, she would go right back into remission. They would catch it and do away with it, and she'd be fine. She would go back to work. She was living her life. And then all of a sudden, her life takes a drastic turn. And I do believe sometimes when we have or we allow, if you will, let's see which phone that is. I need to turn the sound down on. I think it's this one up here. Hold on a second, guys. I don't know which phone that is. But so I think when we allow the wrong people to come in our circle, sometimes it takes away the maybe it's this phone here. Let's see if I turn this sound down. It takes away something, and I'm not sure what it is, because again, I don't have any notes here with me tonight. I'm just, how do they say, off the cuff, off the dome, or whatever they say. This is really impromptu, and particularly because I need to talk, and I didn't want to. And sometimes when we start calling people, and I know sometimes people, they mean well, but they really don't know what to say, and so sometimes when they don't know what to say, sometimes people will um, inadvertently say the wrong things at the wrong time. Like, we are so accustomed to saying, oh, they're in a better place. No, no, no. The better place was with us, so we can continue to love on them, so we can continue to argue and make up and fuss and make up and, go shopping and spend too much money, then be looking at each other crazy, whatever your relationship was with that particular child who died. It does not, it just, it for someone to say or suggest that they're in a better place, even though that's a meaning well kind of statement, it's just not probably the best thing to say. So, Lakeisha, it hits me out of nowhere. I hold guilt against myself, questioning myself because I had to decide to pull the plug on my daughter. That is heavy stuff. Indeed, it is. Unfortunately, when you don't have that opportunity, um, so my daughter had fought cancer for 15 years and she was doing incredible. She had beaten all the odds and she was in total remission. And so- and I'm going to say this as careful as I can, but I want to be as transparent as I can as well, because a lot of times I don't know who's going to watch this, and I'm not here to accuse anybody or anything like that. However, however, I do understand the dynamics of how things work. I understand how God works. I understand how the universe works. I understand how putting stuff out there in your atmosphere works. I understand how bad company can corrupt good. I understand the working of the word. Okay. So, in that, I want to be careful how I phrase what I want to say so I don't come off as if I'm accusing anybody openly, let me put it like that, of anything uh, illegal. Let me just say it that way. I don't want to openly accuse anybody. What I feel in my heart, what I feel in my mind, that's for me to deal with on another setting, but not in this particular public setting. Amen. Amen. So I noticed her starting to change. Everything about her started to change 2 years before she died. And I can say that because that's when she allowed someone to come back into her life. And and if I don't say this, I don't think I'm going to get over how I feel, because that's part of my process, and being honest with the fact that I still carry some anger. I still carry uh uh, every day I have to make a choice to say, Lord, help me forgive these people, because you know how you already know, if it wasn't for this and it wasn't for that, this would not have happened. And but you also, because you are who you are in God, you have to find a healthy way to try to not so much move on, but to forgive that person or those people in such a way that whatever they did or didn't do, or whatever you believe that they did or didn't do, or whatever the evidence suggests that they did or didn't do, it does not hold you in bondage. Because what happens with forgiveness releases you. It sets you free. It's setting me free, because every day, every time it hits me, every time it gut punches me, every time my heartstrings get pulled on, every time I think about everything, I have to immediately say, Lord, guard my thoughts. Lord, help me guard my thoughts. Help me guard my heart, so that anger and bitterness and hatred and wanting to see you in particular get revenge on them. And then this is what I do. I stay in the word. I be like, now, Lord, you say you vengeance is yours, you gonna repay. And then I get sassy with it and I say, and I want to see it when you do it. And so the Lord had to check me on that, to say, listen, you can't pray in faith and in anger at the same time. So I kind of dropped the last part of the prayer. I think it, but I just don't say it. I'm trying to be as honest and transparent as I can, particularly when you know for a fact, if X, Y, and Z would not have happened, then this right here would not have happened. If you had not come along, this would not have happened. And so, such as it is, I was having a really hard time, and then she decided to get married and she called off the wedding, and I was just like, I don't know. I just don't get a good feeling, can't, I don't know. I didn't get a good feeling. Well, long story tolerable. And I know when I say this, a lot of you would draw your own conclusions as to why I'm going to limit this part on what I say. Um, so she got married on March the 3rd, and by March 31st, she was pronounced dead. And so, as of today, this was March 2018, so it's still relatively fresh to us. And we don't know yet. The death certificate says something. It actually lists 4 different causes of death. However, when I asked them what actually killed her, their specific answer was, we don't know. So when they don't know, they just put something on line one to say that, there was something toxic in her system. Her system went into toxic shock. Well, I know a little bit, I'm in the legal field. I don't really know whole lot of medical stuff, but I do know when we did have to take medical terminology, that meant that there was some type of poison in the system from somewhere. And so she had been going, they got married, they went somewhere for a honeymoon. When she got back, she was really ill. And I was like, what's wrong? You was doing fine when you left here. What's going on? She says, I don't know why. The day she came back, a few days later, she came back and she got in the middle of my bed and she was like, oh, Mom, I just feel the peace of God all in your room. And something in me that day started clicking like, I said, you all right? And she was just coughing really bad and she would get cold and hot. And I was like, what's wrong? Where did y'all go? Did you pick up a virus or a bug or something somewhere? Like, what's going on? She was like, I don't know. I don't know. And so um, then she went to she was taken to the emergency room. So the next morning she texted me. She was like, where are you? I was like, I'm home. She was like, why didn't you come? I said, come where? She was like, I'm in the hospital. I was like, what are you doing in the hospital? She was like, I don't know. I can't stop coughing and this hurt and my back hurt and my stomach keep hurting. I was like, I didn't know you were in the hospital. She was like, well, he said he texted you. I said, I didn't get a text from anybody. I said, now you got to know, if someone told me my child was in the hospital, I would be there, period, you know. And so I didn't get that. So I got dressed and I went out to the hospital. When I got there, um, she was there by herself. And so she wanted something to eat. So I ordered in from Panera Bread. I got a sandwich and soup. And so I sat there and I ate with her. She was up walking around talking, everything. We was talking about, she was telling me, well, Mom, she was like, I'll be glad when you start a church back up. She was like, then I can go to church full time. So we were talking about little stuff like that. So a week, she goes home. Maybe a week later, she's texting me again. She was like, Ma, I need you to get your oil. No, she called me on the phone. She was like, I need you to bring your praying oil and come up here and come. No, she said, I need you to bring your praying oil and come. Because now they're saying something is wrong with my, I think she said my pancreas. She told me, I don't even know what my pancreas is. And so we started laughing on the phone about that. So I said, well, where are you at now? She says, well, I'm back in the hospital. I said, what are you doing back in the hospital? I was like, when did you go back to the hospital? She was like, last night he said he called you. I said, no one called me. So now this is like the second or third time this has happened. So I get out there and I couldn't find her. So I kept asking her by her married name, they couldn't find her. So I said, look for her by my name. And of course, that's how she had registered herself. And so we were sitting in there, and again, she was alone in ICU. And we started talking about some things. And I started asking her, are you sure you're okay? This, and the third. She was like, I don't know what's going on with me. I said, well, where did y'all go? And I said, where did you go? What did y'all do? Was anybody sick? Where you went? Like, what did you eat? Did you take any food? Did somebody give you something to eat or drink that you were not familiar with? Like, what's going on with you? She was like, I don't know. I just, all of a sudden, I don't feel good. And so I was like, okay. So they moved her from that hospital over to um, Emory. They moved to Emory. So now she's in ICU. So I go home, and by the time I get home, couple of days later, uh, they transferred her over to Emory because they said they couldn't do any more for her. So I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? So I get out to Emory. She calls me herself on the phone talking to me. She was like, Mom, um, they transferred me to another hospital. You coming? So I said, yeah, where they taking you? So she told me. So I said, okay, I'll be there. But by the time I got there, she was alone in ICU again. So I'm talking to the doctors, and so I'm talking. She's sitting up in the bed looking at me, and I said, "Hey." She said, "Hey, mommy." I said, "What's going on?" She was like, "I don't know. I don't know what's going on." I said, "Are you fighting this? Like, what's going on?" She was like, "No, I don't know what's going on." And then all of a sudden, as soon as she saw me, she started breathing really fast. And I was like, "Where's your husband?" She was like, "I don't know. I don't know." And then as soon as I said that, he walked in and she kind of cut her eyes. She looked back at me. So let me go back a second. The second time she was admitted in the hospital, when the admitting nurse came around to finish up her paperwork, they had asked her, "Well, who is your emergency contact?" So I said, "Well, she just got married, so it'll be her husband." And I said, "That's his name on her board, and that's his phone number." So she says, "No." My daughter goes, "No. Um, put my mom's name as my emergency contact." And I said, "Well, she's probably just a little medicated." So then the nurse came and heard me say that. The nurse said, "No, we haven't given her any medicine yet. She haven't had any medicine today yet." So I said, "Oh, okay." So they said, "Well, we are witnesses that she's in her right mind. She can make her own decisions at this point." And so she was like, "Well, put my mom name down there." So the lady looked at me. She was like, she went, "Are you mom?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm mom." So she was like, "Can I have your phone number?" So I give her my phone number. And so on her records, I'm next of kin. So then I started thinking, why is she doing that? What's going on here? You know, I just kept feeling like something was going on she wasn't telling me. And I'm really careful about what I want to say tonight because again, you know, not because I care about anybody hearing or what I'm saying, but because of what I think is going to come. I want to be careful what I say, if you all can understand that. And so we go through all of that. We're back now in ICU. So she starts breathing real fast and real heavy. So I said, "What's going on?" So the doctors were round the clock in and out of her room, in and out of her room. And I said, "Why is she back here in the back like this? What's going on? Why do people come back here?" It looked like a mortuary back there. You know, it was cold back there. It was isolated. Everybody back there pretty much was waiting to die. You know, people were back there with kidney failure, all kinds of stuff. Woman husband had had a massive heart attack, and he was on a machine. And it was just a cold and eerie, place to be in. And I was just like, why are you here? Like, what's going on? So I'm talking to the doctors and they can't give me any answers. So I was like, you all don't know anything. Y'all can't tell me. He says, well, whatever it is, it's attacking her system from the inside. He said, we thought we got a hold of it at one time and we treated it with some super, super, super strong antibiotics. He says, but 10 minutes later, it came back almost like in 10 times greater form. He says, whatever this is, it's attacking her system and we just can't get ahead of it. And we can't get her stable enough. They wanted to do surgery. They couldn't get her stable enough to do the surgery because then her heart rate started dropping fast. So it's like 12 noonish when she calls me. So I get out there. I get out there right after 12 o'clock in the noonday, 12 o'clock. So they're talking to me. They're telling me about all the procedures and everything. So then they say, well, what we want to do, we want to put her in a coma to keep her alive. He said, because whatever this is, it's fast acting and it's killing her. And I said, what do you mean it's killing her? He was like, We cannot get it. Whatever this is, it's attacking her. It's like something was eating her body up from the inside, and they could not get a hold of it. They could not get it handled. And when they thought they had it handled, it would just come right back, and it was just like ravaging her insides. And so they were giving her blood. Oh God, they had so much stuff hooked up to her. Um, it was one of the most terrifying um, images a parent could ever see, and I feel like it's forever etched in my mind, because I see it often. I see it often, and he says, we don't know. I said, let me ask you this. I said, is the cancer back? Is the cancer that's eating her stomach? He said, no, ma'am. He said, we tested for everything. He said, whatever this is, we don't know. It's not the cancer, you know. Uh, he said, you do know your daughter was in remission. I said, I know that. I said, so this is why I'm not understanding what's killing her. Like, you guys are telling me my baby is dying, but you can't tell me what's killing her. He was like, man, we're trying, we're working around the clock. Next thing I know, he asked me, he's like, would you like to talk to the chaplain? I said, talk to the chaplain for what? I'm a praying woman. I can pray myself. He says, well, because we cannot get a hold of whatever this is that's attacking her system. He said, I brought in other doctors. Nobody could figure out what was attacking her system. And he says, I need to put her in a coma just so we can slow down the process of whatever this is. We need to slow down the process so we can try to we need more time to figure this out, because by then she was like that. And I was like, mommy, love you. I love you. I love you. She was like, I love you, mommy. So we were talking. And I think this is what baffles me. So we were talking, she called me there herself. So this is like 12, a little bit after 12 noonish. So I said, well, okay, go ahead and put her to sleep. He said, well, we'll wake her up in 2 to 3 days. He said, that's how long it's going to take us to get everything under control. I said, so she will recover. He said, your daughter is very strong. Her body is strong. Even though she's been through cancer, he said, her body is still strong. And she's very young. She was 34. He said, she's very young. And we've seen people get to this stage and recover completely. He says, so, don't lose hope. Just keep praying. He said, you pray and we'll keep working. So we had there was no sign that was it. We were waiting for her to wake up. And so they kept working. They kept working. By then, we're calling family in. Everybody's taking their turn in going to see her. And we're still believing God, she's going to wake up. She's going to wake up. And this person, you're not saying anything to anybody. You're off somewhere by yourself on the phone with whomever you're talking to. You're not saying, well, I'm sorry this happened, or I don't know what happened. When I tried to ask, where did y'all go? Who were y'all around? Did she eat anything? Did she drink something? Did you all go around anybody? I was just grasping at straws. I was like, do you know anybody that worked witchcraft? Whatever. I need answers. Something is wrong, and nobody can give me answers to satisfy me as a mother, looking at my child, my firstborn, die this slow and painful and senseless death, and nobody can tell me what's happening with her. And so they put her to sleep, and so they kept giving me updates, and he just kept saying, we probably can get ahead of this. When we wake her up, we'll see where we are now. He kept saying, when we wake her up, we're going to see where we are now. Next thing I know, he says, but if her heartbeat gets to 7, he said, that's it. He says, but we don't anticipate it getting that low because we're still working. When I tell you guys, they must have had looked like 100 bags of stuff just hooked up to my baby. And so, and then they had her on this blood oxygen thing around the clock that was cleansing her blood, and it would take her blood, cleanse it, put it back in. That was around the clock. Everything they did. Then they had this heater under her covers trying to keep her warm, and she's just slowly drifting. So they so the next thing I know, the chaplain comes, and he's asking, who's who, whatever, whatever. So he starts talking to me. And again, the other person is far removed from everybody else, you know. Um, so the chaplain comes and he prays with the family and everything. So by then, her heart rate start declining really fast. I mean, really, really fast. So if I got there at a little bit after noon, 12 o'clock noon, she's sitting up, she's talking to me. In fact, she called me to come to the hospital herself. So I get there like 12 noonish, a little bit after 12 noonish, 12:21 a.m. She's dead. And to this day, I still have not had the opportunity to get the autopsy report. The doctor comes out and he says, Miss Bradley, he says to me, he takes me to the side. He said, it will be in your best interest if you ordered an autopsy report. When he said that, I knew something was not right. I still know it to this day. I know something isn't right. I don't know what it is. And again, I want to be careful what I say because I don't want to come off accusatory, not on air like this. I don't, you know. He says to me, we did all we could. He says, but whatever entered into her system, we couldn't get ahead of it in time. Had they transported her in time, or had someone known, what was going on with her in time, we could have maybe gotten ahead of it and figured out what was going on, but they just did not have the time to get ahead of it and figure out what was actually going on. And so he said to me, I would strongly advise you to order an autopsy report. So when the other doctor came out, he says, are we ordering an autopsy report? The doctor looked at me and he shook his head, yes. And I said, yes. And he kept coming out there, so when she died, we were all in the room with her. And I was just holding her hand, just talking to her, kind of letting her know, it was okay if she, didn't want to wake up, it was okay if she didn't want to fight anymore, because she had gone through a lot, even preparing for that wedding, gone through a lot with the person she married. A lot of stuff came out that I wish she would not have went through with the wedding. I feel like she would still be here if she had not gone through with it. And that part, I don't care who knows that I feel that way, because that is the honest to God truth. And so I think sometimes, so the next thing, they do the autopsy report. Now, I had to go and get copies of the death certificate. I was not given copies of the death certificates from the person she married. I had to go down there and pay for copies of it. I had to take her birth certificate to prove I was her mother. And this was long after the funeral and everything. I still, you know. So as of to this day, I tried to get the autopsy report, and I could not get the autopsy report. They told me to fill out all the paperwork, and they told me to come up there and get it. So when I got up there to get the autopsy report, I give the paperwork to the lady who's working there, and she comes back and she says to me, oh, she says to me, well, where's the husband? And I said, I don't know where he is, you know. Um, she says, well, he has to come and get this for you, or he has to sign power of attorney over for you to get the autopsy report. And I'm like, but I'm her mother, you know. And I said, besides, they were only married like 27 days, you know. And so she was like, I understand and I'm sorry. I said, but I talked to you guys on the phone and you guys told me to come out here. So as of today, um, she died March 31st, 2018. I still don't have the autopsy report. As of November, what's today's date? November the 12th, 2019, I still do not have the autopsy report. And on the death certificate, it says that there was no autopsy done. And it was. And I'm just like, what's really going on here? You know, and my greatest concern is that something's being covered up. You know, something's being covered up, but I don't know what it is. And like I said, my first inclination was the fact that I wasn't getting notified that she was being taken to the hospital each time she was taken there. And when I did get there, she looked unkept. Um, and if you guys know me, then you would understand um, why that would be an issue for me to see my child looking unkept, because I've never seen her looking unkept. Um, but that was the state she would be in. She would look unkept. And I would often say, you know, why does she look like this? Why didn't you do this? You know, why did you bring her in here like that? Why is she, you know? He would just be like, oh, I don't know. I'm now like, you know, if you wasn't just my thing, if you wasn't gonna take care of her, you could have left her in my house where you found her, you know. And I just I still have trouble some days processing everything. Today, I find out from some of the other parents that have lost a child um, about is dreaming about that child. You know, I dream about my daughter a lot. And in those dreams, she's always trying to tell me something. And I'm like, what is she trying to tell me? And why do I keep having like these reoccurring dreams where she's actually like she's trying to tell me something? And I remember in one dream, she came to me. She was like, are you going to let them get away with that? And I promise you, I woke up, everything on me was soaking wet. It was like somebody just took me and dipped me in the river and pulled me back up. My bed sheets, I was soaking wet, just like water, like I had been running through a pool of water. And that was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So I got up, I had to strip my bed, and I'm just like, what are these dreams about? Like, why do I feel like um she's trying to tell me something and I'm just not getting it? And so then I get a call. I was taking She has a daughter, um and we'll do a show with her at another time, and we'll talk about our transition, how that affected us in our relationship, even with the guy coming back into the picture, and how that all affected our relationship as well. Um, so I'm raising her daughter now, and I've got her in therapy as well, um, because she has a lot of questions I don't have the answers to. She asks me often, "Well, what really happened to my mommy?" I I don't know. I don't know, and until I can get my hands on the autopsy report, I don't have any answers for anybody. You know, I don't have answers for myself. I don't even know. I know very little about Georgia law. Um, Now, if I was in Florida, it'd be a different story. Georgia law, I don't know if there are steps I can take to actually get the autopsy report without him having to give me uh, power of attorney, because he's not going to do that, because we've been stopped talking. We stopped talking the moment she died. You know, and so I was at therapy with my grandbaby one day, and her biological dad called. He says to me, Miss Benita, I don't want to upset you, but I'm calling you because I'm very upset about something. So I'm like, what is it? He was like, I went out to the gravesite today and there's no headstone. And I said, what do you mean there's no headstone there? That was the first time I knew that there was no headstone. Mind you, at the funeral, I asked that person, do you want me to order the headstone? I'll pay for it if you want me to. Oh, no, no, no. I already ordered it. Everything taken care of. I was like, okay. So when I got that call, I'm like, I just broke down crying. He was like, I'm sorry, I didn't want to upset. I knew this was going to upset you, but there's no headstone there. There are no flowers there. There's nothing there but the silver tag they put down there when they buried her. And I was like, no, because I was told that all of that was taken care of. He was like, no, ma'am, there's nothing here. All right, so I called my niece. I'm like, hey, can you do me a favor? Because I live in Georgia now, and I have been. Um, we all lived here. She actually died here. We just took her back home to bury her between my dad and her biological dad. So she's actually kind of buried in between her two grandfathers. Um, and so I called my niece. I was like, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you go up there to the gravesite and see if there's a headstone there yet?" So she goes up there and she FaceTimes me, and there's nothing there. No flowers, no nothing. Nobody's been there since the funeral. So now I'm again filled with rage. I'm again now. Hi, Sandy. I'm filled with anger. Now, again, I'm filled with resentment. Again, I'm filled with thoughts of revenge, you know, and I'm just filled to the top. And in the interim of all of that, I'm still saying, God, just please help me. Lord, just please help me. And it seemed like the more I would pray, the more intense those feelings towards those people would get. And it started affecting me mentally and physically, to where I couldn't get up out the bed in the morning. I would get up, take a shower, put on clothes, do my personal stuff, and then I would get back in the bed. Some days I would eat, some days I would not, you know. And then um one day I just kept being in pain. Everything on my body was hurting, was hurting. So I went to my primary and they was like, we can't find anything wrong with you. I was like, but my head feels like somebody was just crushing my head between two boulders, like two mountains was crushing my head. So he says, well, I think you might be depressed. And I'm just like, listen, I've dealt with depression before. I've even tried to commit suicide before. I know what all that feels like. This is not it. So he was like, I think it is, because all of your tests, there's nothing wrong with you outside of you having a brain tumor. He said, but this is not what I'm seeing. He says, because all in your neck, everything, all up here was swollen. Everything up here was just tight. I couldn't move, couldn't turn my head. And so he sends me to a psychiatrist. And my first visit with her, she diagnosed me with clinical depression. And she started telling me like what's going on. She was asking me a bunch of questions. So I was telling her, and she was like, well, the first thing before we even get into anything else, she just started telling me, you're very angry. She said, anger was just sitting all up here. I couldn't move my, when I would try to turn, I would have to turn my entire body because I couldn't move my neck. All my muscles was just contracting together. That's how angry I was, that my baby, was gone. I tell people a story that I had her when I was 16, so we literally grew up together. We grew up, we raised each other, you know what I'm saying? And um so it was a very hard time for me, and particularly not having closure, still not having a lot of closure because again, I still don't know what happened. I still don't have any answers. And somebody might say, well, just have you talked to him? This child packed up everything in my baby's house and moved back to Florida before we knew anything. When I say everything, I mean everything. Even her wedding dress, he took everything, and I was just like, who does that? I mean, like, who really does that? So still we have no answers, you know, and to watch your firstborn die in a 12-hour span of time right before your eyes. It was, and there's nothing you can do but pray, and ask God, I would remember being at the hospital and I was just praying and praying and praying. And then all of a sudden it came to me, you don't know what she's in there talking to God about, though. And at that point, I was like, I changed my prayer from, wanting her to just be with me to, Lord, let your will be done. Whatever your will is, I'll accept your will. Even if it's hard, I'll accept it. Even if I disagree with it, I'll accept it. Even if I have to cry, Lord, I'll accept whatever your will is. Just give me the strength. Give me the love to get through it all. And surely enough, um, as I was praying, I leaned my head against the glass window. And when I opened my eyes, there was a bird sitting there. He was just sitting there. And I knew at that point that she was leaving. Right after that, they came and said, Miss Bradley, um, she's at a 7 now. She says, I think you need to call everybody in. Call everybody in. And her heart rate was then at a 7. And so I literally stood there, watched her heart count down until the last beat. And when I tell, every time I think about this particular story, the grace that I take away from this story is that God was so kind. He was so gracious in allowing me to be the first one to hear her breathe, to be the first one to hear her speak, to be the first one to feel her heartbeat, to be the first one to hold her hand. That was his grace and his gift to me. And he loved me. This is just my grace, and this is the way I process it. He loved me so much, he allowed me to be the last one she spoke to, the last voice she heard, the last hand she held, the last touch she felt, um, the last voice she heard before they put her under. And that is just the grace, I believe, that God put on me so that I would not lose it completely, because I'm still trying to figure out, like, where did y'all go? You know, where did y'all go? What did y'all do? What did she eat? And he was like, I don't know. He wouldn't even answer me. That was the thing that was tearing me up. He wouldn't give me any answers. And I was just like, I could just do something to these people. And the more I would try to talk And then it was time to plan a funeral. That went crazy. I'm just like, and then, you know, there are people who say, oh, she's trying to do too much. And why is she doing all that for her? That's my firstborn. And I can send her home any way I feel like sending her home. Um, we did not live a half-hearted life. Um, you all want to take away the fact that this child was Christian, raised in a Christian home. No, we're going to have a Christian homegoing service. We're going to have it at our home church in Orlando, Florida. That's what we're going to do. Um, it was just so much, and it became so ugly so fast. And I'm still trying to figure out, like, what did all y'all get so angry about? The only thing now, thinking back, what made them mad was sometimes when people, this is my thing, you got the insurance money that you lied and told everybody I was trying to get. You were one of the beneficiaries. I had my own money. I offered to pay cash for the entire thing. But you told me you got everything taken care of, everything taken care of. You know, uh, to this day, like I said, I was not even given death certificates. I had to go down there and get them probably a few months after she died. I finally had enough strength to go down to the hospital where she died. Um, and I tried to get the autopsy, but they wouldn't give it to me. Um, so they told me to go to the records department, get the death certificate, and come back. I did that. They still wouldn't give it to me. So I don't know what I can do to get a copy of that autopsy report. Because again, on the um, death certificate, it says, the box there, it says no autopsy performed. And there was indeed an autopsy. So why would the death certificate say that that is a beautiful way to process it? Thank you, Taya. Um, um, why would the autopsy report say, why would the death certificate say there was no autopsy report when in fact there was? Well, how do you know for sure there was an autopsy report? Well, number one, I ordered it myself. Number two, the doctor stood there as a witness because he told me, he whispered to me, he said, Miss Bradley, it'll be in your best interest to order an autopsy. He said, because we couldn't figure what this was. He says, and we need to know. That's what he said. He said, because you need to know. That's what he told me in my ear. All right. Fast forward. Fast forward, she died 12 hours later. All right. We stayed a little while talking to her, and they said, well, let us clean her up. And then you can come back in and sit with her. So they unplugged, took out all the machines and cleaned her up. And so they just let us, I just wanted to, sit in there with her for a little while. It was really hard for me to leave her there, but I knew I had to. I knew I couldn't take her home with me. This was one of those times I couldn't take her home. Um, and so I was just like, okay, well, we got to get home and start planning this and planning that, because we had two services, one here in Atlanta and then one in Orlando. The big homegoing service was in Orlando, Florida. And during that time, I remember someone saying to me, I was so used to being in pastoral mode because I was the grief counselor at my church. Well, one of the grief counselors at my church. And so I didn't realize at that moment that I could no longer be the grief counselor, but I was the one grieving and I was the one that needed counseling. And so, but I was so accustomed to just jumping into that pastoral mode and that pastoral role. I did the same thing when my daughter died. I immediately put my pastoral hat on until one of the elders, he called me. He was like, Pastor Benita, he said, you're floating in pastoral mode. He said, that's what you're doing. He said, it's okay. Get in mommy mode. I'll never forget that. He says, you need to get in mommy mode so you can process this. When he said that, I didn't even realize what I was doing, and when he said that, I think that's when it became real, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to go get her and bring her home. Like, this it? She's gone. Like, and I think that's when I started getting angry with people. I was angry with a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And if listen, one of the things I really pride myself on is being honest and transparent. I'm still really angry. I've just learned how to process it a little bit different. And thank God for therapy, you know, and sometimes medication because it helps, So, yes, I got Jesus and a therapy. How about that? So um, I have an awesome therapist. I have a psychologist. I see a psychologist. We do talk therapy. That's called psychotherapy. Remember, when I do my shows, I tell you guys don't get caught up on the big words because sometimes they have little meanings, but they help a whole lot. So psychotherapy is really just talk therapy. But then you see the psychiatrist to get a little deeper, and if you need medications to help you kind of balance things out, because when you're that angry and when you're in that kind of mindset, everything in your body is subject to shift. Your hormonal everything, your endocrine system, everything shifts, not just in your mind and your brain, your chemical, everything in you shift. It had gotten so to the point when I was go to counseling, she would say, are you eating? And I was like, yeah, I eat, and then one day I was doing something and I felt this big knot on my neck. So I was like, I told my other daughter, I said, hey, come feel, I got a knot on my neck. She was like, oh my God, yes, it's sticking out of your neck. So me, I'm sister cautious. So I go to the doctor, they're checking everything. And I said, it's not right there. He's like, Miss Bradley, that's not a knot. He said, that's your bone protruding out. He said, are you eating? And I was like, yeah, I'm eating. Um, but I think I was drinking water and doing shakes and surviving off coffee, you know. And every now and then, when somebody would come around, I would eat something so they would see me eating. But for the most part, when people would not be around, I wouldn't eat. I couldn't get out of bed unless somebody came by to see me. I couldn't talk on the phone much because I couldn't process not having answers. Like, how does this happen? You go through all this, God, I've been serving you. I've been faithful to you. I ain't been perfect, but I've been faithful to you. I love you with all my heart. I've been obedient to you. So you go through all of those what ifs and your shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and what could I have done different? And I should have, put my foot down, but at 34, you can't make children do what you want them to do. You good and grown at 34, and I went through all of that, some of it was self-imposed guilt, like, you know, I should have made sure she didn't marry this person, or, I should have fought harder. Just everything was coming through me and to me at one time, until one day I go to get up out of the bed and I cannot get up. I cannot get up out the bed. So I get up, go to the bathroom. I'm taking a shower. I'm actually getting dressed to go to the gym. And the next thing I know, I'm back in the bed and I'm thinking, how did I get back in the bed? One day goes by. The next day, I said, well, I'm going to the gym the next day because I need to get out the house. I get up, get my shower, get dressed. Before I know it, I'm back in the bed. So now a week or so goes by, and now I have this routine. And I don't even realize that it's a routine. I get up in the morning, do all my self-care stuff, get my shower, all that stuff. I would even do my hair, put on makeup, like I was gonna leave the house, and I would find myself back in the bed. Couldn't move, couldn't move. Um, I wasn't opening I'll come in my living room, I'll open up all my drapes in here, but I wouldn't open them in my room. Every now and then I would get up and open the drapes just to feel some sun touching my skin. But other than that, um, Instagram, if I lose you guys, please come back, okay? I'll bring you right back in. I think I'm gonna lose you guys, and you guys are really doing good tonight. So it's giving me a countdown for you guys. So come right back. I'm gonna bring you right back in. But so I didn't even realize that I had fell into this pattern, if you will. Um, hold on, guys. I didn't realize. Let me get them right back. They do so well. Hit that. Okay. Um, I didn't even realize I had fallen into this pattern of and this deep well. So what happened was I get grief. Grief, then it got to the point where um my grief started to turn into thank you. You guys do so well. Come on back in. Thank you so much. I apologize for the interruption. Hey, thank you. I see you're back. Thank you so much for coming back. And so I didn't realize I had gotten into a pattern, of getting up, taking a shower, getting dressed. I would do hair, makeup, everything. You know, um, Sometimes I would get dressed, but then I would find myself like, what am I doing in the bed? So then it became so routine-ish. I was doing it unconsciously, like a robot, like a robot. Didn't even have to set my alarm clock anymore. I was moving like a robot then. Get up, get a shower, do my hair, put on a little makeup, back in the bed. And then before I knew it, I've been in the bed so long till now the kids are coming home from school. And that was like 2:30, 3 o'clock. And I'm thinking, I know I ain't been in this bed all day. And I was like, what's going on with me? Why can't I? And then I couldn't sleep at night. So some nights I would literally get in the bed like 10 or 11 p.m. and I would literally lay there and watch the sun come up the next morning. So finally, because when I would sleep, I would dream. When I would sleep, I would see my baby. When I would sleep, I would hear the machines beeping. When I would sleep, I could feel the rage coming against these people. I could feel it. I could feel myself almost getting excited at the fact that something is going to happen to them any day now, you know. And so it was paralyzing me so much so to I didn't even realize I had gotten into this pattern of depression, and it turned from grief to this deep, 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 deep depression until, like I said, I would get in the bed and go to bed at 10, 11 p.m. at night. I would just lie in the bed and I could see the sun come up the next morning. I would hear my granddaughter go to school the next morning, and she leaves out like 6:15 to get the bus because she's in high school. I would still be awake then, and then I would try to go to sleep in the daytime. I couldn't sleep. So then it got to the point where even though I couldn't get out the bed, I couldn't sleep either. Because every time I would try to sleep, I would see her face. Every time I would try to sleep, I would hear the machines. She had one tear that ran down her face when I had touched her hand and told her, it's okay if she let go. I'm here. I love you. She had one tear that ran down. That was her final tear, ran down her face. And I'm just like, I keep seeing that. Now, lately, when I dream about her, she is completely healed. There's nothing wrong with her. And, she's up and talking. But she's asking me questions like, did you talk to them yet? And then I'll wake up. And couple of dreams that I've had, and these are reoccurring dreams, she'll say, so you're going to let them get away with that? And then I'll jump up because these are not just, they're audible dreams as well. And sometimes when I have these dreams, you know, I wake up, but I wake up as if I was looking for her or doing something because I always wake up in a different I don't know, like something's different. And so I go back to therapy, and I tell her I can't sleep. No, she asked me, "Well, are you sleeping?" Because I had my shades on. And I was just like, "Oh, I'm fine. I got a migraine today." And I did have a migraine because I hadn't been sleeping. And she says, "Well," then she finally said, "Well, can you take your glasses off so I can see your face?" So I take my glasses off. My eyes are like, you know. And so she's like, "You need to sleep." And so she gave me some Ambien. Well, I had never taken Ambien before, you know. And so I took it. I started taking Ambien. Me being who I am, I would take it and still be up doing stuff. And then when it would hit me, I would lay down and go to sleep, but then I would sleep dream, you know. Um, it's like sleepwalking, but I'm awake. So people, um, I would get up and I would go and fix me a bowl of raw spinach and eat it. Um, I didn't realize I was doing that until one morning I woke up and there was this half-eaten bowl of spinach sitting beside my bed, and I was like, "Who been in my room eating?" You know. So I was talking about something, and my daughter, and at that time, my son's girlfriend, they were like, "Ma, do you know you was up walking last night?" And I was like, "Well, I had this dream, and this is what happened in the dream, and this is what da da da." They said, "No, everything you just described in your dream, you actually did last night." And so they telling me. I was asking them about whose kids were those. And I said, "Well, were there kids in the house?" She was like, "No, you looked at two pillows and you thought they were kids." And I said, "Well, what else did I talk about?" They said, "Well, you start talking about Rivia a lot." That's my daughter who died. And she said, "Most of the time when you sleep dream, um, dream walk, you would ask about Rivia, like, well, is she coming over? Y'all heard from Rivia, you know, uh, stuff like that, you know." And I was not aware that I was doing any of that, you know. Number one, because Ambien just that strong. That's number one. And then number two, I wasn't taking it right. I wasn't lying down when I took it. I would just take it and, keep trying to do whatever I was doing, whether I was cleaning up, doing laundry, or studying, or what have you. And so um, I was studying, well, I am studying to be a psychologist. And so one of the things I first thought, well, I got to drop out of school because, you know, I've been diagnosed with clinical depression. There's no way I can be a psychologist now. And so I was talking to my therapist. She says, "Oh, you're going to be an excellent psychologist." So I'm in my last year of school, but I still have my days when it's really rough. Today was really rough. I couldn't get out the bed today. And I think one of the things that keeps us in bondage is the fact that when we do go through the different things and it's more than what we can really take, or it's more than what we know how to process, I think one of the biggest things is the secrecy of saying, "Well, I've been diagnosed with clinical depression," or "I'm still grieving over my loved one, over my child," if it was your spouse or whomever. I think one of the things that the enemy constantly, um, how he wins is when he says to us, "Well, you can't tell anybody, that needs to be a secret." I think that's the secrecy, or keeping secrets, is worse than being diagnosed with anything, because inside of those secrets, it's always in your mind. I hope nobody don't find out. I hope nobody finds out, because people can be really evil. Especially if you're in ministry. Some of us mainstream. We're very well connected, and so you immediately think, well, if people find this out about me, people are subject to question everything I say and do from this point on. Much like if you are, an attorney or what have you, and you're found to be shady, then everything you've done gets called into question. And so it is in ministry. You never want to be labeled, because a lot of times I hear people talking about, mental illness and depression and stuff, that either won't ever admit that they've dealt with it, or they've never dealt with it. So it's easy to say that it's because of sin, or it's demonic, or it's a spirit. But sometimes the brain just can't process certain things. And so when the brain can't process certain things, um, the transmitters, the neurotransmitters in the brain where they would normally connect, is kind of like they start doing this. Something's not connecting right in the brain, which causes your entire chemical structure to just be off. I have these moments when I'm really good, and then like today, I have these moments like I literally I didn't get out the bed today until it was time to pick up the girls from school. And I got up, got my shower, got dressed and everything, because I knew most times on our way from school, they want to stop by Publix or dollar store to get their snacks or somewhere, you know. And so I got up and I got dressed or what have you. But I wanted to just come on and share a little bit of my story with parents who may have lost their children, you know. And sometimes it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your walk with the Lord, or how you pray, or if you pray, or you know, if you tithe or if you don't tithe. We sometimes we get all mixed up, um, and we mess people up with all of those things that we say, instead of actually asking God, asking the Holy Spirit, like, just give me the words to say, give me words of peace, give me words of comfort, to help this person make it through. And then if you don't have words, sometimes just your presence is what's needed. I have days where I don't really want anybody to say a whole lot. Sometimes I just want somebody in my presence. You know, um, Kids are going to school, and then I'm here by myself. I'm either working on books, or, doing something for one of the companies or what have you, and I'm thinking, I don't need nobody to talk to right now because I don't feel like talking. But sometimes having a physical person in your space sometimes gives you an easy feeling of not having to carry that particular burden alone. And so, particularly and especially when you are a single person, I don't really like to put that out there, because then, folk be all in your inbox, as if you was advertising. No, I'm not. And so, for those of you that have lost a child suddenly by whatever means, whether it was through violence or gunshots, or saw someone come on and say they know someone who lost their child to domestic violence. Um, that's hard. That's hard. Okay, someone on Instagram says that feeling is real. In my moments, my mom is the only one, who can calm me down and bring me back. Yeah, I mean, it's real. And I don't think it's fair for anybody to say, oh, get over it. I think that is the most insensitive thing and ridiculous thing you could say to a person that is grieving, you know, um, grieving someone, particularly a parent or a spouse, child, you know. Um, this has been a really hard journey for me. Because you guys might know, you may not know, those of you who are not familiar with the show, that I am a brain tumor patient, and a lot of stuff I was asked asking questions my daughter with. She was like, well, Mom, I didn't want to worry you with that because I knew, you know, you had gone through brain surgery and this, that, and the third. I'm like, but I'm your mom. You know, you have always told me everything. You know, there was nothing she was like, well, I already know how you felt, you know. Yeah, okay, what does it say? They'll also tell you let it go. And you can tell me let it go till the cows come home. You know, the sky will turn purple and green and gray, and that doesn't work. You know, let it go, get over it, let go and let God. Well, the fact that I have not tried to exact revenge on my own is clearly me letting go and letting God, you know, but the hurt and the fact that you know this didn't have to go that way. You know in your soul that uh, in law, those of you that are in the legal field, we have this saying, but for. That means that but for this would not or would have happened, you know. And so, but for the fact this person came back, you know, if they had not come back, this would not have happened. You know, I'm confident in saying that. And I do not care who know I said that part. That part, I'm sure, I'm sure I'll stand on that. I'm sure of what I just said. Absolutely sure. Because a lot of times when God is doing something in you and you invite the wrong people into that element, into that environment, honey, you got to be careful that you don't bring a curse into a blessed situation and that you don't try to take a blessing outside of the realm where the blessing is protected and go and hook up with something that's cursed. Because you can't do nothing with a curse but become cursed yourself. In my heart, I think is that who I think it is on Instagram? Is that my other child on Instagram? Tell me yes or no. I don't want to call your name, but I think it's you. Okay, hey babe, how are you? So she said it's me, Mom. So um I absolutely believe within my heart. And that's one of the hard things. That's one of the hard things about trying to ride these waves. And, you know, grief comes in waves. I could be doing fine. I could be laughing and talking and chopping it up on the phone with friends and just laughing and have a good time. Even sometimes, like in the middle of conversation, my heart will just like, you know, like skip a beat almost as if something's missing. You know, I remember when we did the wake here in Atlanta, and I went up to the casket. That was another thing we had to wait. So after she died, 2 days later, I got a call. Say, hey, Miss Bradley, is the funeral home coming to get your daughter? I said, what do you mean? Is the funeral home coming to get her daughter? I said, my daughter. I said, the funeral home should already have her body. And I said, you guys said you were doing the autopsy. She says, well, we did the autopsy Sunday night. And I said, so why is she still there? And she said, well, nobody, we called the funeral home and the funeral home said no one has called them. So then I got angry. I'm telling you, I got so angry. I could literally feel the blood vessels in my head squeezing, just squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. And I said, ma'am, I said, she has a husband that is supposed to be taking care of everything. And she said to me, she said, ma'am, your daughter put you down as her next of kin. And whoever her husband is, she completely took him off of her records. She said, so you're the only number we had to call. I said, my daughter did all that? So now I'm thinking, when did she do all of that? So that means to tell me if y'all let her do all of that, she wasn't sick unto death then. So that means my child was still in her right mind. That means my child was coherent. That means for whatever reason, she didn't want him to have anything to do with anything after that point. You all will find out why later, but I can't say right now. Do I know? I know why she didn't want to have him to heaven. I just don't know what happened to her as a result of the things we found out. Okay? I can say that much. I don't know what happened to her after we found out everything. My other baby said she knew. She did know. She tried to tell me, but every time she would try to tell me, he would walk in, you know, and she would just kind of motion her eyes. I'm just like, and then the fact that every time you took her to the hospital, you wouldn't call me or text me, and you were telling her, "Oh, I text your mom." So when I got there, I would always show her my phone. I'm like, "See, there's no record of him calling or texting me." She would get so angry. She would get so angry, and so finally, I called him. He was like, "Hello," just real matter of factly, like, "Why are you calling me?" And so I'm like, did you not call the funeral home? They were saying nobody picked up her body. He was like, well, why didn't they call me? What they calling you for? And right then and there, I was like, listen, at that point, everything just got out of control. Him and his mama just got angry. Everything just went to hell real fast. And I can't even tell you why, to be honest with you. What they calling you for? And I'm just like, I want to tell them so bad. To this day, I still haven't said anything, because I know me. If I start talking, if I start down that road, I'm going to say everything that I know was going on, and it's just not going to turn out well for you, you know. And so, and then I have my baby to think about, she's only 16. I have her to think about when all of this comes out, you know. Because she loved that man, as her dad, even though he was her stepdad, she loved him, and now he won't even talk to her. You got that money and you got all that stuff out their house, none of what you bought, you know. So the funeral home gets her. She has so much fluid on her. Her body now is 3 times the size. My baby was, she real tall and petite like a model, but now she's 3 times her size. So they got to work. It took them almost 2 weeks just to get all the fluid off of her body, so we could bury her. What you mean by nothing? Tell me what you mean by that. And so then he takes this dress down there, something he pulled out the closet. They called me. It was like, Miss Bradley, we can't use the dress that was brought in because it's too thin. Listen to this, guys. And it shows where they cut her open to do the autopsy. You can actually see through the dress and see the stitching where they stitched her back up. And again, on the death certificate, it says no autopsy was performed. So not only do I know one was performed, the funeral home know it was performed. Right. Exactly. Exactly. The pot nor the window. Exactly. 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 And I'm trying to be really nice, but I'm really struggling these last couple of days. For some reason, when November comes in, I start struggling, and then I try to do stuff to counteract. But today I couldn't. It was like I was just climbing up a mountain, with no gripping, like I couldn't grip. And so I was talking to a friend of mine, um, and so I said, I'm thinking about going live. And they were like, well, go ahead. If you think it'll help you to talk about it, go ahead. At this point, I don't have a lot of shame about anything. At this point, I got to do what I got to do to save myself, because if I find myself getting back to that dark place again, or going to that place where I was, um, if I use this platform as part of my therapy, then so be it. People have an option to tune in or tune out at their leisure. You know, my prayer is that by me sharing my story, because a lot of times people, they'll say, oh, you don't look like you're going through that, or you always look put together, or what have you. And sometimes it's not about what's on the outside of a person that we could detect, but sometimes it's what those things that we can't see that's really relevant to them and that's going on. Sometimes your greatest battles are those things that you can't see on a person's outward appearance, and so this today it has been incredibly hard. Um, so my baby, my 16-year-old, she was like, "Now, you sure you want to go live tonight? Why don't you just wait till after Thanksgiving, after mommy's birthday? Because her birthday this year is actually on Thanksgiving, And so we're going home for Thanksgiving, and this is the first time I've been back to Orlando since I went there to bury my baby. And then because my niece, which is she's just like my other daughter, and she calls me mom. Um, she called me when she went down there, and she found out there was no headstone there. She called me, kept checking. I kept saying she would go down there every other day, just about take her lawn chair and a book and a sandwich and a bottle of water. She would go down there in the heat of Florida sun and just sit out there, because that was the closest thing she would ever have to a sister, because they were more like sisters and cousins. And so she would FaceTime me and let me see. She would take flowers and teddy bear. And then we figured out she was the only one going out there, Um, she was the only one taking flowers out there, you know. Um, and so we started talking to, I told her, go in there to the office at the cemetery and let me talk to the people and see how much longer it's going to be before they install the headstone. At this point, we are probably at the end of the year or uh, into the new year by then. So she gives the guy the phone, and he says, "I told him give her the name in there." He says, "There's no order for it." And I said, "Well, this is the person's name who would have ordered it." I gave her his name, gave the man his name. He says, "No, I'm not telling you." I said, "Well, has it been paid for?" He says, "No, I'm not saying it hasn't been paid for. I'm telling you, it's never been ordered." And I said, "So you're saying that a headstone was never ordered for my daughter? Is that what you're saying?" He said, "Yeah, we don't have an invoice. We don't have an order form. We don't have anything." And I said, "You got to be kidding me." Then I got angry again. And I'm thinking, so you got this money and you gone. You took everything out her house, and you didn't even get a headstone for her. So my niece called me one day. She says, "Hey, mom." She says, "There's still no headstone down there. It's been a year." And she said, "I want to do, what is it called? She says, I want to do a GoFundMe. Um, is it a campaign or whatever it's called?" She says, "I want to do a GoFundMe and to raise money to get her a headstone." And We tried to reach him. He wouldn't answer. He wouldn't reply to text messages. He wouldn't return calls, none of that. And so we were trying to find out, well, why didn't you order it with all the insurance money you got? So we left that alone. So she says, well, I said, well, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't have the strength to do it. And so she says, well, I'll take care of it. I'll do it. She was like, I just need your permission. So I was like, go ahead. So we got the headstone. It's installed now. Um, so this will be my first time seeing it. I saw it when we ordered it, but I only saw it, pictures of it, and saw it online and saw from the pictures my niece sent me, but I've never seen it in person. So when I go home for Thanksgiving, that'll be the first time I see it actually installed in person. Because again, I have not had the strength to go back home since I think we buried her April the 14th, 2018, because it took about 2 weeks for them to get her body back to normal size because she had so much fluid. Because they were throwing, he said, ma'am, the doctor came out, he said, Ms. Bradley, we're throwing everything we know at her. He said, we're throwing the strongest, the most potent antibiotics, everything we know to throw at her, we're throwing it at her. He said, that's why her body is looking like it is. He says, but whatever this is, we cannot get ahead of it. And so, I'm just like, don't give up, So we didn't get a chance to pull the plug. It wasn't a matter of pulling the plug, we didn't get that opportunity. We didn't get to make that decision. You know, the only decision we had to make was what to say in our final goodbyes, and um, because whatever was attacking her, it was attacking her from her intestines. And from what I understand, if there are any medical personnel listening or will hear this, you can put it in the comments. From what I understand, that's one of the worst places to get any kind of infection because it's so hard to get it under control. Um, and I've skipped about with the story on purpose, again, because of what I know to be true and what I believe in my heart of hearts, and whatever may come afterwards, Um, I just have not had the strength to follow through with what comes next. Um, but I believe once I go to Florida, go home, and we're going to have a candlelight vigil on her birthday at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is also on Thanksgiving Day. So we're going to have a candlelight vigil at the gravesite, 7 o'clock, Thanksgiving Day, because again, this will be my first time seeing her headstone, and plus it'll be her birthday. So we're going to release some balloons and do a candlelight vigil around her gravesite. Um, because for many, it'll be the first time for them seeing the headstone that was installed this year, I believe. And so, what I would like to do, if you are listening or if you watch this, those who know, and will behind. Oh, will be behind you every step. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Only a few people really know in depth what happened and what we believe happened and what we saw happen, um, and what we believe the motives were behind everything that happened. That's all I can say at this time about that. Um, but one thing I found out that God has a way that's so different from our way. We like Medea, we want to see folk got, you know, and God has a way when God exact judgment, he does it so that he gets the glory, when we want to bring judgment, we don't care about no glory. We don't care about your story. We don't care about nothing but watching you feel the way you made everybody else feel. That's all we care about. Let's be honest. And so at that point, that's the one thing I do have to constantly surrender to the Lord. I have to constantly surrender that part of me to the Lord, And so riding the waves of grief, it's I can't even tell you like I feel it when it's coming on because I don't. I could be having a perfectly normal day, doing normal things, going about my business, and that thing will just hit me. It'll just hit me. I can be in the store and do something that remind me of when me and her was in the store, and I could just start crying, and I got to hurry up and get out of the store. I can be driving, and it'll hit me. You know, um, so I try not to be out too long. I'm just now getting where I can actually go out of the house and stay a long period of time and actually enjoy myself. It does. It just comes out of nowhere. For those of you that understand how grief is not something you can control. It's not something you can get over. People just say, "Oh, snap out of it, get over it." Let go and let God. All that sounds really cute, but it's not our reality. Those that were very close to her happening, but God knows we had no idea it would end like this. And I think part of what we deal with is a little bit of guilt, like we should have pushed harder for her to come, to not go, that far with the relationship. We should have did this. We should have did that. Yeah. Sandy said, yes, you're right. There's no way to say when it will come. Sandy lost her husband. They were married, I guess, 30 years or more, almost 30 years or more. And they are very close in our church when I pastored with my ex-husband. They were good members, faithful people, and worked hard in ministry, and they absolutely loved the Lord. And he had a battle with his kidneys, I think, that came from him being a diabetic. And he eventually succumbed to that. And um, easily recover from, and like I said, it'll come out of nowhere, and then you can be just, you can actually be happy, and then next thing you know, you're crying and trying to figure out why I'm crying. I was just happy a moment ago, and because we in the Black community, we think so negative about depression and how grief works, and how it looks and how it comes. We call everything a spirit. And so a lot of times our people in our churches, in our communities, they suffer in silence because they don't want to be put in that negative connotation of, as soon as you say depression or anxiety or PTSD or mental illness, everybody want to, oh, the blood, oh, that's the spirit. Oh, we need to cast that out. Honey, you can't cast out depression. Why? Because it's not a spirit. It is not an evil spirit. And the reason why we got so many people hiding in dark corners, hiding in dark rooms, hiding in dark places, and will not come out and talk about it like I'm doing is because the Black church and the Black community have made it such an ugly subject to talk about. It took me a long time to even tell my children I was, had been diagnosed with clinical depression after my daughter died. It took me a long, I wouldn't tell anybody. People would call, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine. I would just put this voice on, and I would put on this air. But as soon as I would hang up, I'll be just like this again. And because we just don't even try to educate ourselves enough about mental illness, how it affects each person, how it looks. I remember when I first came out, my first show was June the 1st. One of the first things I said, this is how depression looks. It looks put together. It looks made up. It looks well kept. So because it has no gender, it has no color, it has no preference. It has nothing to do. And a lot of times people look for people that have depression or whatever to look unkept. All of that. But that may not be your level of depression. Your level of depression may be you can't get out the bed. Then when I finally was able to get out of bed, I couldn't leave out the house. I didn't want to leave the house. I would leave the house, do what I got to do, and hurry up and get back home. I didn't like to eat out. I wouldn't get anything to drink out because I didn't want to have to stay out long enough till I had to use the restroom. So I would do what I had to do. If I wanted to eat out, I would grab something and come back home. You know, um, and then slowly I started, going out to eat and sitting in a restaurant. I remember one day, I actually took myself to the movies, but I went for a matinee. I just wanted to see, could I do it? And it was a challenge that I put on myself. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna get out the house today just to see how long I can stay at the house before I feel that urge to run back in, into my safe space and go back in my room. I had two safe space in my room and on my recliner with my blanket. As long as I was in my house, I felt safe. I felt uh, shielded from anybody finding out that I was still having trouble processing everything. I was still crying over my daughter. I was still, yeah, and a lot of people look normal. Thanks, babe, for saying that. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. A lot of people, they look normal, and it's like, what is normal? You know what I'm saying? And so, I remember sharing with somebody that I was going to start talking about it. And, they were like, well, I wouldn't do that if I was you. I wouldn't put myself out there like that if I was you. People are going to, say this and say that, child. It's like, well, it's going to be hard for you to find somebody to date, this, and then the third, if you put that out there. Child, that's the least of my concern. Trust me. And I have not been quiet about it since then because you know what my fear is? My fear is if I stop being vocal about it, I go back to that dark place and then I again come away from everybody. You know, Two of my nieces have gotten married. I couldn't do the wedding because that was the last time um, I danced with my daughter. You know, um, um, yeah, that's the last thing you think about. Yeah. So I missed two weddings. Two of my nieces got married. In fact, I was supposed to officiate one of the weddings, but I couldn't do it. I wasn't ready to be in that kind of scene, because like I said, when my daughter got married, then she died 27 days later. So to me, then a wedding is then synonymous of her dying. They kind of go hand in hand. So I wasn't ready for it. So I explained it to my niece and I was just like, I hope she's not angry with me because I just couldn't do it. But she said she understood and she was really gracious and kind. And I pulled out enough times that she had time to find someone else to officiate her wedding. And I was still um, blessed and honored that she even asked me to officiate her wedding. She was actually renewing her vows after 15 years. And so I just couldn't do it. My other niece got married. Um, I couldn't go. Um, just still not ready. I'm still not ready for large crowds, of people. Um, because I know a lot of times people say, well, how you doing? And, they mean well, but the truth of the matter is some days I'm okay and some days I'm not. And so my fear is when I say that I'm not, then they'll try to find the right thing to say. And most of the time it's not going to be like what I really want to hear. So my safe thing is to just kind of stay clear of people. Now I'm sure that part will get better as the days go, but right now I'm still struggling with that. I'm still struggling with being around a large crowd of people. And I don't know, there is no specific time that you will be over such a loss, particularly if it was a child. You know, my therapist was telling me the loss of a child is one of the deepest loss you can feel, particularly on a mother's perspective, because that's something you carried in your own body. That was something that was a part of you. When we had the memorial service, the wake here, and I went up to the casket, I literally could feel it was like a part of my heart was just pulling, and I thought first I thought I was having a heart attack, because of the grief and the pressure I was feeling. And it literally felt like something was pulling out of my heart. Every time I would go close to the casket, it was like something was pulling my heart. And if I'm honest, it's like a part of me. And literally, that's what it is. A part of me is gone, because when you go to the doctor and you first find out you're pregnant, one of the ways that they can detect that you are pregnant is that they'll hear two heartbeats, you know. They'll hear your heartbeat and then they'll hear the baby's heartbeat. And so I always would tell her, and I tell people when I talk about her, that we had two heartbeats, but we shared one body, you know, and that's how much I love her. That's how close we were. Yeah, we had our moments, you know, um, when you're 16, that she was born, she thought she was my sister, you know. That's how it is. They usually don't know what to say. That's so true, Sandy. That's so true. They mean well, but they don't know what to say. I remember when she turned 18, she came to me. She says, Mom, I've been thinking. And so I said, Oh, Lord. What? I thought she was going to ask for a car or something when she turned 18. So she says, Well, since I'm 18 now, um, I think I should answer your business line. I said, No, you don't go in my office and answer my business line. Don't do that. She was like, Well, I need to know everything you know. Now that I'm 18, I'm a woman. I was like, Girl, if you don't get out my face, if you don't get out my face and go sit down somewhere, I know something. But that was her mindset. She thought we were sisters, more than mother and daughter. So um, Sandy said it does get better. I believe it does. Um, I don't know if I would say better. I would say copable. It gets a little easy to cope with. Let's see what you say. Yep, contrary to what people think, y'all were closer than they thought. That's true. That's true. And at one point, she was me. That's our private joke we make all the time. Even when she was alive, you know, right? She thought she was the boss, right? And so, she she would she thought she was me for a while. She did act like me. And so when I needed my name back, I was like, "Can I be myself now?" So we have this little joke that says she was me for a little while, and that's a little internal joke that we have running between us and my other kids and my baby that's watching live on Instagram. And so even when I'm happy about her and we're sharing good memories, I'm still sad, that she's not here. Um, and so, yeah, yeah, Sandy, yeah. Yeah, you guys are really doing good. I am actually live in the comments with everybody on tonight. I'm live in the comments on YouTube. Thank you guys for staying with me. I'm live in the comments on Instagram. Thank you guys for staying with me. And I'm live in the comments with you guys on both pages on Facebook. Thank you guys for staying with me. Um, I just needed to talk through the moment I was having, and I wanted to see if there was anybody else that was going through that have those moments. You've lost a child or somebody really extremely close to you, but more specifically a child, because again, that was someone you carried in your body. You shared the same heartbeat, the same blood, the same oxygen. What you ate, that baby ate. What you didn't like, they didn't like. All that good stuff. um it was something your body produced and brought into this world. It was a life you were actually responsible for caring for and taking care of, and making sure they grew up properly and understood who God was and understood the ways of the Lord and things of that nature. Went to school, fared well in life, if you will. And so I wanted to just take this time to talk to you guys and just see. Um, if there was anyone. I know it's getting a tad bit late, um, but I needed to talk. I needed to talk through this. And I said, what better way than to just go live on my show, and because I have so many different streaming revenues, or whatever the right word I want to use right there, um, I'm able to reach more people. Um, because right now I'm streaming from 4 different devices. Um, but hopefully we'll be able to get what is it called again? Uh, Periscope up. I'm still working on trying to figure out how to get Periscope up because I don't know. Um, but I want to reach as many people as I can. This probably won't be the last time we talk about this. Um, but again, I'm just being careful. I don't want to put too much out there because of what I believe in my heart is going to come after this. You know, yeah, platform. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, uh, Streaming platforms. That's the word I was trying to say. Several different streaming platforms, and so I do want to have this conversation again. So, but you guys know I haven't been on as much lately because I'm in my final year of school, and I'm in my core classes now, and we're getting down to the crust of this pizza, if you will. And so I'm carrying full load so I can go ahead and graduate and be better suited and better prepared to serve our community, our churches, and our people. Um, Mainly because I can help from both perspectives. I can help professionally, and I can help from a personal experience perspective. So I have not only sympathy, but I have also empathy um, going for me. I have not only experience, but I have also education, to back up my life experience. And so I think that alone is going to make me a very wealthy asset to the body of Christ and a very wealthy asset to the Black community. Thank you for sharing. I know it's tough, but it's always good to let some some out piece by piece. Yes, it is very difficult. Um, and my kids tonight, it was like, well, are you sure you want to talk about this tonight? You don't want to wait till after we do the candlelight vigil, and do you think you're ready to talk about it right now? And I said, yeah. I said, I need to talk because I'm not doing well. And again, one of the things the enemy fights me with is the secrecy of it all, not reaching out. A friend of mine was telling me tonight, Benita, you got to learn how to ask for help. And I said to my friend, I've not always had that leisure, that's not, always been at my leisure to just say, hey, I need help, and unfortunately, um, because in these days and time, even among clergy, you don't know who you can trust. You just don't know, and it's unfortunate that it is like that, but that's just the way it is. And so, and I said, okay, okay. So I said, well, let me just do a quick run in and run out, and hopefully someone is watching that this will help. There's no time limit on it. You don't have to get over it. You don't have to let it go. You don't have to snap out of it. Just ride it. Sit in it for a minute. Feel how you feel. Cry if you got to cry. Get angry if you got to get angry. Let it process through you. Let that energy flow through you. If it's negative energy, let it flow through you so it can come out. And if it's positive energy, let it flow through you and cleanse out the negative energy. Just sit in it for a moment, process it. There's no time limit on grief. There's no time limit that you're going to stop missing somebody. I don't even believe that time heals all wounds anymore. I used to think so, but now, honey, I don't believe that time heals a whole lot of stuff. Number one, that's not scriptural. And number two, uh, that's not a promise made to us that time will heal all things. And so, therefore, it has no real validity other than the fact that it sounds good when we say it. But it has no validity. It has no weight on it. There's nothing to it that makes it true. It only becomes true because we've said it for so long that we actually believe it. But I will be the first to tell you, time by itself does not heal much of anything. If in fact that were the case, we wouldn't have this process called grieving. She says the conversation has been awesome. I journal, cannot find too many to talk about it. Absolutely. That's why I do what I do. Sandy's commenting on Facebook. That's what I do. What I do. On Instagram, they're saying I'm working. Oh, I'm a working progress, but I haven't made it there yet, and it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to. You can't measure your healing by where somebody else is or is not. I know people who have lost children and they just act like life is just wonderful. And I just be looking like, well, I ain't there yet. I'm just not there. No, I don't want to hang out. No, I don't want to go here. I don't want to go there with you. I'm just not there yet. So and again, all this because it's fresh to us, and we still don't have. We have speculations, but we don't have concrete answers. Let me put it like that. We don't have concrete answers. We have speculative. Um, we just don't have concrete answers just yet, but we will get them. We will get them. In the words of the old folks, if the Lord should tarry and delay his coming, we're going to find out what really happened. We're going to find out exactly what happened. You know, oh, yes. Oh, yes. We're not just going to let this go. You know, Sometimes people think, well, they ain't did nothing by now. They ain't going to do nothing. You know, sometimes you just got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run, you know, and yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And so, but trust and believe, um, because it's not settled in my spirit. I know as a praying woman, if something is not settled in my spirit, it's because um, I don't have concrete answers. Thank you, Sandy. And I received that. I absolutely received that concrete answers will come. Thank you for putting that in the atmosphere. And so, whatever and why the Lord has not revealed it all to me. It's like he's dropping pieces here and there, but he has not revealed it all to me in totality. I think that's for me. That's for my good. That's for my sake. That's for my sanity. That's for my health. And that's for my peace of mind, because, um, you know, sometimes we have that clickability that a whole lot of people don't see because we my mom would tell me that I got that calm before the storm kind of. My mom would say I have that calm before the storm. So I'm going to end Instagram